Hey everyone, my name is Casey. This time on Patina Pit Stop, we're going to replace the front coil springs in my 64 Chevelle station wagon with drag springs and introduce you to Patina Pit Stop, New World Headquarters, a 2-car garage. That's right. That's right, guys. After 8 years in a 1-car garage, I have now upgraded to a 2-car garage that I can still only get 1 car in. Got the bikes and everything hung up. I bought those fancy lights. I don't know if they're that great or not, but better than nothing. I have still got some work to do to get everything in over here in this garage. We have a lot of Christmas stuff still. Pile of wheels and tires, transmission, toolbox. But things are starting to look up, starting to get a little more organized. We moved in about a week ago. If you followed the channel, you know that we lived in Wisconsin and we moved to Nashville, Tennessee about a year and a half ago. Moved into an apartment with 2 1-car garages. The house we had when we lived in Wisconsin had a 1-car garage. Now before that, before I met my wife, I had a house with a 5-car garage. So I went from 5-car to 1-car. See that? 5 cars down to 1 car. I give her a hard time about that a lot, the sacrifice that I made to go down to a 1-car garage. If you ask why did I only get a house with a 2-car garage, well, it's because we rented a house. If I would have bought a house, I would have bought something with a big shop. But the way the market is right now, we decided we're just going to rent, but at least we have a house, we have a yard, we have a place for the dog and the kid to play, and this is a way better setup. The kitchen is right there. I don't have to walk up 2 flights of stairs to get back to the apartment, to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water or any of that stuff. And I can work on my car anytime I want. I can make noise. Now I am in a neighborhood, but at least I don't have like neighbors right above me. The only person right above me right now is my wife who's working. So I don't have to be quiet and only start my car, after 10 a.m. and before, and get home before 8 o'clock. I don't feel bad about any of that stuff. That's why we moved into a rented house. It's a newer house. We're very happy with it. Life is good. But for the past 2 weeks, I've been doing nothing but packing and moving. So today we're going to work on the station wagon. So a couple of reasons why we are doing this in particular project today. Couple of things. One, the station wagon sits lower in the left front than the right front. It has for a long time, probably because when I put these springs in, I didn't clock them right. So this one's a little bit lower. The other thing is, I didn't paint the spindles, and I should have. You see how rusty they are? So I want to paint the front spindles. I need to go through the brakes, make sure everything's okay. I did the front suspension about 8 years ago on this car. I've owned this car 11 years. So about 8 or 9 years ago is when I completely rebuilt the entire front suspension. I put the disc brakes on it. And that was probably 4,000 miles ago. So everything should be fine, but I want to make sure that everything's good before this drag and drive event. So we're going to pull the front brakes off, check the wheel bearings, make sure everything's okay, check the brake pads, make sure everything's lubed up and free and working the way it should. Replace the front springs, partly because I have a set of front drag springs that I bought when I bought the rear suspension for this car used, and I might as well put them on now. I'll pull the spindles off, paint them. All that stuff can be done in one foul swoop, and I'm going to bring you guys along for the ride. So let's tear into this and get started today. All right, as you can see, this is all rusty and crappy looking. And by the way, when I redid this suspension on this car, I bought the cheapest disc brake rotor kit that I could. So this thing had factory drum brakes all the way around, obviously. And what I put on was this kit that I think these are Chevy S10 rotors and Chevy Malibu, like 78 G-body Malibu calipers, or vice versa. It's S10 calipers and Malibu rotors. One of the two. I don't remember. I just remember, and I remember when I put them on, I was like, I should remember this because someday I'm going to need to replace the pads and then I won't remember. So for a couple of years I remembered, but I don't remember anymore. Good news is, pads are like brand new still. But I'm gonna clean up all the hardware just to make sure everything looks okay. Clean up all the rust on there. Might paint the calipers. Oh. It actually feels pretty good. I'm gonna repack the wheel bearings just to make sure everything's kosher, but why I'm doing this side first is a very specific reason. Because my toolbox is on this side, it'll be much easier. Do I not have a cotter key in here? No way. That would be really dumb. I do not have a cotter pin in here. Whoops. Good thing I checked this. How did I not have a cotter pin in here? That is bananas. Definitely needs grease in there. It does not make me feel good. That bearing should not have come out. Oh, that is not good. That looks pretty seized to the spindle. I'm finding all kinds of problems here. Good thing I pulled this apart. Did not expect this. Okay, so my concern is this should have come out inside of there. It should not be stuck on here. So my assumption is this bearing is not good, so we're just going to beat it out. Okay, well, getting a new bearing. It's not scarred up, which is good. So not a good start. Really not a good start. Well, let's pull the shock, tie rod, shock out, tie rod, and then upper and lower ball joint. Everything else has come apart without any issues. No issues, no problems. Everything had cotter pins. So now, the violet part. Shock is out. lower ball joint's loose, so popped right out. This should lower down. Oh, gotta pull the nut off. People get scared of this spring. I probably shouldn't. But I'm too scared. Put this on there. Huh. Do I just paint this like it is? That's what I'm about to do. All right, my plan was to put this side back together and then go to the second side. But now, with that bearing being wonky here, and an obvious lack of cotter pins, I'm gonna have to make a run to the parts store for a seal in that bearing. So I'm gonna take apart the other side. But once I go back to putting this together, painting it, then I'll bring it back in. All right, painted up in here, painted the spindles, got it all cleaned up all this, everything looks much better. And now, just gotta start putting everything back together. I already started on the other side. I went and got one new bearing for this one, and should start putting everything back together now. All right, it's the next morning. I got the front suspension, started putting everything back together last night. Put the springs back in, put the shocks back in, and I greased all the front suspension, the ball joints, tie rod ends, everything's greased up and ready to go. I went to the parts store and got 2 new wheel seals and one new wheel bearing. I don't know that the wheel bearing was really bad, but I had to kind of hit on it to, beat on it to get it off. So I figured to just go ahead and replace it. So the wheel bearing is for an S10. So the rotors are S10 rotors. The calipers are G-body calipers. So that way I'll remember now, because I can just come back and watch this video sometime in the future and see that's where they're from. Everything's painted up, painted the calipers, painted all the suspension. Everything's back together, at least as far as that goes. So all I need to do now is pack the wheel bearings and then put the rotors on, put the calipers on, and set this thing on the ground. We'll see what it looks like. Hopefully these springs aren't any lower than the other ones, because this thing already sits pretty low. So let's get it back together. All right, I'm gonna pack the wheel bearings. This is how I do it. A little bit of grease, bearing. I did get most of the old grease off, but there's still, you can see there's still grease in there. What I do is when I see the old grease start to come back through, then you know you got at least most of it through. If you keep going and you start to see the red grease, the new grease, which I don't know if you guys can see it, but let's see here. See the red grease? Oh, now I know I got good grease in there. The other trick that I've always was told from Dad was that if you shake the bearing and you hear the bearings, that's what I think it sounds like in my head. If you hear that noise, that means you still need more grease. This one is still pretty good, but I'm just going to put new grease in it just because I got it out. And what I do is I turn, tighten, turn, tighten, turn. I went pretty tight. And then I back it off a little bit. I'm afraid now if I went back to that hole, definitely not lower. Apparently, the spring on the other side wasn't popped in all the way. It scared me. All right, it's a couple days later. Got the suspension all wrapped up. Actually, spun the wagon around in the garage here. Got a little more daylight out front here, so I'll show you what it looks like. Pretty happy with it. Control arms painted. Everything's greased. Calipers are painted. Everything under the hood's looking good. And I went through, jetted the carburetor up a little bit more. Haven't test driven it yet to see what it's like, but hopefully it's a little bit better. And then the last thing on my list of I had to do was put a battery vent in. So got my battery in the back, if you remember on this. There's my on-off switch, which on, off. If you come in here to see my on-off switch, on, off. And then batteries mounted in the back here. And then I ran a vent right there out, did a loop and then ran it out down underneath the car down there. Probably need to seal that up somehow, which I'll do that later, which means I probably won't do anything about it. But the next video you see will probably be the intro to the Drag and Drive event, which is Southeast Street in Yeet. It is November 10th through the 13th, and that's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4 days, 3 tracks, all in North and South Carolina. I'm so excited about it. I can't even stand it. Can't wait to be a part of that event and go with my dad, which I think that's going to be really cool to be able to do an event like that with my dad. Something I've always wanted to do. So that's going to end it for this video, and I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already, and we'll see you in the next video.